beloved Madridistas. Welcome back to Madrid. Welcome back to the channel. I lost my voice at the Bernabeu last night, so it took me a while to put this together, so I apologize for that. Listen, we have so much to discuss. This was a top shelf match, the best club match I think that you can watch in world football today. It was absolutely incredible. The atmosphere at the Bernabeu was incredible, but we have a lot to discuss, a lot of really interesting takeaways here. Firstly, let me say that I tried to do a live stream from Sagrados Corazones as the Real Madrid bus was arriving. There were so many people in that area that the cellular network, it was impossible to stream. But I put together some clips of what the atmosphere was like in my previous video. It's just a couple of minutes, but it gives you a bit of flavor of what the atmosphere was like ahead of the match. It was absolutely electric. It was incredible. But listen, I want to go over the match. I want to give you my thoughts. This has nothing to do with what happened the last 2 years. We played a very, very good match. I think City were praying for that final whistle, and I really think that things look very different this year. But let me give you my thoughts on the match. We're also going to have to mention the ref, because I don't know who this French guy was, but he was appalling. But anyway, thanks for being with me. Let me give you my thoughts on this really incredible match. All right, let's get started. All right, welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, let's talk about last night's match, which was really just such a high-level, excellent match. Okay, let's start with the formation. The formation that Ancelotti came out with was, unsurprising. It was actually the one that I had mentioned in my match preview. No surprises there. The only thing I would mention is that Rodrigo spent a lot of time on the left. That was obviously deliberate. But in terms of formation, it was kind of unsurprising. We had Tchouaméni in the back with Rudiger to give that extra bit of muscle. So no real surprises in terms of formation. Now, Kevin De Bruyne did not start, and that was a surprise. It was kind of unclear what sort of last-minute illness it was, but he didn't start the match. But let's go through some of the kind of broad takeaways in a sort of semi-chronological manner. The one thing, sort of from a broad perspective, I thought we looked really lethal on the counter. This was a match where City, they had a tendency to sort of hold the ball for long spells at a time, but it was always in the midfield and sort of very innocuous areas and not particularly dangerous areas. So, possession, I think, is one of the most deceiving statistics in football. And I think last night's match was a good example of it because, we always looked very, very dangerous on the counter. I think Vini and Rodrigo were just, electric the entire night. Every time we stole the ball in the midfield and would run on the counter, we looked really dangerous. Every play looked like something could happen. But in terms of, the match could not have started any worse, okay? So in the first minute, Tchouaméni, which is one of the 4 players that we were, trying to avoid a yellow card, Tchouaméni comes in, a very late tackle, very sort of, just kind of irresponsible. So he gets a yellow card in the first minute, which means he won't be able to play the return match. But not only that, you had a goal which was just absolutely ridiculous. The ball was so far away. Now, it was a very intelligent goal, and, it certainly was, but this was a terrible mistake by Lunin. There was basically no wall. There was no wall because the ball was so far away. There was sort of a 1 or 2 man wall. But Lunin, his placement, he was so far left, it was just completely irresponsible to leave the other post so wide open. He did manage to get to the ball, but of course, he should have stopped it. Because he did put a hand on that ball, and it was just a soft hand. He should have been able to push that ball away. So this was a terrible, terrible mistake by Lunin. The match could not have started any worse. And I have to say, most other clubs at this point would probably, shrug their shoulders and wilt, but not Real Madrid. Absolutely not. The crowd got into it, and the game picked up. And, there were, like I say, it was kind of back and forth for the first 15 minutes. The game looked quite wide open. But like I say, every single time that we stole the ball in the midfield and turned around, we looked really, really dangerous. We looked very, very quick on the counter. I have to say, Kroos and Camavinga, in my mind, had a very, very good first half. Camavinga, actually, the whole match. He stole so many balls. He was so active in the midfield. Another thing I think that's really important to mention is that throughout the entire match, Rudiger was fantastic. I mean, he completely neutralized Haaland. Haaland, I mean, was he even playing? I mean, he was completely non-existent. But every long ball that was attempted to get into Haaland, Rudiger was either anticipating it or was perfectly positioned to sort of react if Haaland did touch the ball. But I think Rudiger won every single one-on-one, every single 50-50 battle with Haaland. So Rudiger, I mean, we have to, make a special note of his performance. I thought it was fantastic. I'll mention Jude. Jude he wasn't particularly fortunate, lucky, with the ball. I mean, he'd sort of tried a few dribbles. He did lose the ball on a number of occasions. So it wasn't his finest performance offensively, that's for sure. And he did miss a couple of chances as well. But he worked very, very hard defensively. And, I watch, as you guys know, I go to the Bernabeu and I watch the matches there. Then I kind of watch them at home, more calmly on TV. And, in the stadium, the emotions are running so high that it's very, very hard to really have an objective view of what's going on. But what you do notice in the stadium that you don't pick up that well on TV, because the TV is always just following the ball. But Jude didn't have his game, but he worked very, very hard on defense. And, he always gives just 100% every single match. So, I think that's worth mentioning. Now, in one of those stolen balls, that I mentioned, Camavinga came up with this goal. We were a little bit fortunate because it did deflect off one of the City defenders, but it wasn't luck in the sense that it was a product of intense pressing in the midfield and a very, very quick counterattack. So Camavinga's goal kind of put us back in the match. And then very shortly thereafter, same situation, a very good pass by Vini to Rodrigo. It was a really wonderful pass. Rodrigo, running, at full speed. He's such a speedy player. And then at the very end kind of did what he could and, was fortunate that the ball went in. But the play itself, I think, was an excellent play by Vini and Rodrigo. Now, after that sort of 2-1, we created a lot of chances. So the game after the 2-1 was sort of a very similar pattern. City trying to, hold the ball and kind of control the tempo in the midfield, but never really creating much danger at all. And Real Madrid stealing the ball and looking very, very threatening every time they did. So that was sort of the pattern of the match through the 2-1. And it really always felt, like I say, that we were closer to a 3-1 than City equalizing. So, I would say the first half overall, I think we played really, really well. And the goal, like I say, was just very, very unfortunate. Just a terrible mistake by Lunin. Now, when the second half started, it was more of the same. I mean, the first, 10, 15 minutes of the second half felt exactly the way I described the first half. And then sort of, out of nowhere, Foden scores this magnificent goal. And, we're not going to subtract any merit to Foden because the goal was spectacular. I mean, he was able to put so much power into that shot with very, very little time. He wasn't running forward. He didn't have any inertia. He really just almost in a static position delivered just a beautiful curler with his left foot. And, he had been threatening. I mean, you could see that this is sort of his patented play. And we know he has a very dangerous left foot. So the goal, in terms of play, came out of absolutely nowhere. It was kind of unwarranted based on sort of what we were seeing on the pitch. But it was a spectacular goal. And, we have to sort of give Foden credit for that. Now, the next City goal, the third City goal really came... Again, kind of surprising. It came very shortly after Foden's goal. And it was a great shot by Guardiol. I mean, it was just a phenomenal sort of, volley. And I mean, great goal, but if he tries this 100 times in training, probably one will go in. But, unfortunately, it was a magnificent strike. And it just, obviously, put us on the back foot for a while. But again, what happened after this is you had the switch. Once after that goal by Guardiol, Modric came in, and of course, Real Madrid is never a team to give up or slow down. So we picked up the intensity again. Modric brought a lot of fresh air into our play. I mean, he moved the ball very well. He looked very dynamic. This is exactly, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, this is exactly the way to use Luka Modric, right? When both teams are kind of tired, and he comes in with 20 minutes left, and he's incredibly experienced, very good on the ball, and he comes in fresh at a time when the other players are starting to feel fatigue, and his presence was really, really noticeable. So, we were playing quite well. I think at this point you could feel that, City really wanted the match to end. I mean, I think that they could sense that, Real Madrid was in a position to score, and Modric when Fede scored his goal, this was a beautiful pass again by Modric, and Fede just hit an absolutely fantastic volley. And at this point, the crowd went wild. The atmosphere in the Bernabeu was incredible, and at this point, you really felt at the 3-3 that there were maybe 10 minutes left. And you could feel that Real Madrid was really, really tightening the screws and putting on pressure. And at this point, you could really feel that Man City just wanted this match to end. But in those final 10 minutes, we created some good chances. Jude had a very good chance. Carvajal had another really good chance. And I have to say that when the final whistle blew, I think the City players were quite relieved. So overall, I think this was I think the result is a little bit deceiving. I don't think it reflects what happened on the pitch. And I think psychologically, even though this isn't, a bad result to take back to the Etihad, I think psychologically, the City players have to be aware that this Real Madrid side, this is not anything like what happened the last 2 years. So, I'm still hopeful going to the Etihad that we certainly showed that if we play a game like this, we can win, because I think we should have won this one. Now I do have to mention the ref because I don't know who this French guy is, but he was trying to be one of those refs that kind of lets play continue, which I like. Generally speaking, I like. But it felt like every time he did that, it worked against us. In the first half, there were some very, very clear fouls on Jude that weren't called. There were a couple of fouls on Camavinga that I think were, quite obvious but not called. If you notice, the ref, he whistled the end of the first half and the second half when Real Madrid was in a position of attack. I mean, if there was even a slat, an elbow to Rodrigo's face that was completely ignored. And then one thing I have to mention, towards the end of the match, he only added 4 minutes. And I don't understand how that's possible. When I watched the match again on TV, when Foden went down in the second half, he went down, and I timed this. In the 84 minutes and 54 seconds, Foden goes down. He didn't get off the pitch until the 86th minute and 52 seconds. So that's 2 entire minutes was just Foden getting off his ass and getting off the pitch. So I don't know how on earth this guy came up with 4 minutes. And then, of course, he blew the end of the match at exactly 4 minutes when we had to throw in a dangerous position. So I thought the referee was appalling. For those of you that watch CBS Sports in the U.S., and I heard a couple of the clips, their commentary, these guys don't know what they're talking about, okay? The ref was awful. They have a very strong English Premier League bias on that TV show. So if you're in North America and you watch CBS Sports, watch it without hit the mute button, because these people don't know what they're talking about. But anyway, listen, my conclusions are that the match in the Etihad will be very difficult, and it's not a very good score to take back. But I think that we were the better side, and we created more danger and we created more chances. And I think that if we had played another 20 minutes, we would have won the match. So it's not a great score, and we don't have a great track record at the Etihad, but I don't think this is over. I do not think this is over. And I think if we play the way we did last night, I think we can win. So, listen, those are my thoughts on the match. Again, sorry it took so long because I lost my voice. But thank you guys for listening, for being with me. And, look forward to the next video. And as always, a la Madrid.